You are watching the Pan-African Daily TV with Dr. Susan Tatah. The Africa we want: unity, consciousness, our culture, our spirituality, our history. One Africa for Africans worldwide. Motherlands calling its diaspora home. Join my voice. Join my team. Join my campaign. Campaign 21 hashtag 1 million subscribers on the Pan-African Daily TV YouTube. Be a volunteer. Apply now. Be the new Africa. All right, I'm back. Can you hear me out there? We're having some serious technical problems. It's not just, but we're going to try today to get a professor on audio, and then we're really going to reschedule to have him live on the show. Are we okay with that? I think that's the only option that we get absolutely now, because it's a problem of energy on the continent and he cannot connect. Come live on the camera, but at least they're trying to sort out possibilities that he could, we could get him on audio as we usually do with some of our guests. And I want to thank you. You'd never left. Oh my God, you're so many, as we told you. But like I said, it's a very important topic treating today. And honestly, he's going to be back again when the situation gets better. Let's say on Saturday or Sunday or Monday, we'll really have to have him live in person. But today, I think he's just going to introduce the topic, introduce himself, and so we could get to know at least the person whom we're talking about and introduce the topic. So I would put him on camera, and I also would share his profile. You already know about that. He's a vice chancellor of ICT University in Cameroon, Yaoundé. And actually, oh my God, we had good stuff to talk about today, but he's going to say it on camera. And make sure you ask your questions as well. And I hope our audio would be so audible enough. All the volume, right? So you can see. So let me bring him on audio. Please pay attention, close attention. Okay. All right, we just have to give him a little more time. Like I said, the issue is the energy out there. And we know the challenges and we have the solutions in our hands: infrastructure, energy. Though we're having renewable energy, we have the biggest energy sector on the continent that we can light up the whole Africa and set up a satellite that is Africa oriented. And so we're not going to be having such issues. The internet on the continent, the electricity on the continent, I just came from there. I made almost a year there. It's hands-on. It's something like, we have it here, but it's not, it's a luxury out there. So those are some of the challenges that is really aching for us to understand, that we have such a continent with so many opportunities, endless natural and mineral resources, energy in every sector, and we have to still beg, like we have to stay back to host our shows, So it's actually, but that's the way it is. And those are the problems and the challenges that we have to solve. And those are the challenges that you see Ibrahima and his team and this alliance are actually solving currently on the continent, to say a never again generation. That will not happen again in the history of Africa and Africans. And I think, yes, we'll get there. We're getting there with this kind of leadership. So While we are waiting for him to connect, let me just share a little bit of a video, image to give you an overview about this ICT University, where the professor is a vice chancellor, because they have really interesting programs for the diaspora. Like I posted last time, now is no longer the time that we have to say the continent. On the continent now, you can really enroll your kids on in the university on the continent, and ICTU is one of those world class, information communication technology that you can enroll your kids right away from the diaspora. It's cheaper, and they can study on campus on the continent, or they can take classes online and still have the certification. It's a kind of like, you know, um, while I'm waiting, let's just watch what it's all about. And yes, right. Thank you so very much. As you can see, that's actually how I got to discover Professor Jean Emmanuel Pondi, as I went to this institute to find out, as I was on a research to find out Pan-African voices out there on the continent, the ones that are reliable, the ones that are professionals with actually a huge background of research and education that could actually push this cause of a free Africa from their teachings, from their knowledge, from their research. Because most often we have the impression, like, the researchers that actually understand the continent are in the diaspora, Africans in the diaspora. Like, we actually don't hear from professors on the continent. And so I really went on the research to kind of like get, people that we could rely on their knowledge. And I started digging out by finding out who are some of our professors and non-resident professors that are always giving African history lectures, talking about Africa international relations, in short, to universities in the West. And each time we are confronted when we meet at conferences that, the Europeans know Africa more than us. And I begin to like, it's not possible. It's not just because of colonization or global or slavery or stuff like that. Something is adding up. That something's not adding up. Like, our lecturers are actually being the lectures, or the experiences on the continent, teaching in these classes for more than 20 years. You can see all of them being on campus at Cambridge University or at their alma maters where they taught. So, like, kind of like bring the knowledge that we are supposed to have. First-hand knowledge is not available. So I started to dig on this research when I was continent a list of professionals and academics, and scholars that actually go around the world teaching about Pan-Africanism, teaching about Africa, teaching about us with us. And that's how I stumbled on Professor Pondi, and I begin to understand. I had a couple of sessions with him, books that he has written, more than 27 books, and articles that he has published in one of the best journals in the world, more than 70 of those articles. I think it's getting up to 100 now. I mean, books upon books. I spent 2 days in his library, and I could not go. I could not be I just wanted to stay. And I kept asking myself, there are millions of these Pan-African professors with a deep hands-on knowledge of ancient African history, on the traditional African setup, and are also into governance, policymakers, decision makers. And these are professors that are teaching the young Africans, I mean, like the future of the Africa that we want to see. it was very important for me and Professor Pondi to discuss about the curriculum, because we've been talking about the curriculum of Africa for years. We've been talking about the curriculum for years. And he explained categorically what the issue is, the challenge is, and what and the solutions that they are bringing. I was like, so I thought we were just dreaming, and these things are actually on the ground, hands on. I mean, if you meet a professor like Professor Jean Pondi, who has traveled the world, people in African countries, now we cannot but say this is a professor with hands-on knowledge. So when I met Professor Jean Emmanuel Pondi, we went through a lot of series of these discussions in his library, in his office. He showed me his books, all the articles he had written, all the awards. You know, as a graduate of the London School of Economics, at Cambridge University, the School of Diplomatic Academy of Vienna. I mean, like a world-renowned professors that also were taught or mentored by Professor Molifi, which we know, one of the biggest professors. And so it was a pleasure. People, like I said, Professor Jean Emmanuel Pondi is still going to arrange this face-to-face conversation, but today we're really just going to have him on camera, just to feel on audio, to feel him, to hear from him, and let him introduce this topic of this alliance Sahel to us. And little by little, we'll begin to understand. So he's right here on the speakerphone. I'm going to put his image on the show so that you can at least feel this big professor, like I said before. Greetings, Professor Jean Emmanuel Pondi. I know you're joining us live on audio. Of course, I'm really sorry for the technical challenges that you've been going through, but I think we'll have to reschedule, like we said. But your audience has been waiting, they're boiling, they want to know you personally, and also to get an introduction about this new Sahel Alliance of Africa, and that you are actually so versed and you've written a lot about it. So greetings to you, my professor. And yes.
Greetings.
Thank
Greetings, Dr. Tatah. I'm very happy to be on your program, even though under a different format than the usual one. The most important thing is to be able to discuss, to exchange, and maybe to pass on a few words amongst us. So I'm happy to be with your audience, really.
Thank you very much, Professor. And the audience has been looking forward also to have you. And though we are speaking on the audio, they would still love to have you. So the first question first will be like, do you think it will be possible, even after this audio, that we can reschedule? When will you be available? Are you available on weekend or Monday?
Yes, it's better towards the end of a week, basically, around Thursdays or Fridays, like today. In the middle of the week, I'm a bit busy, but it's easier for me either during the week.
Okay.
So next week, it's possible, yes.
Wonderful. Next week, Thursday or Friday is possible.
Yes, yes.
Wonderful.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. I mean, you've heard him, and if in case you have questions for Professor Pondi, please just drop the comments in the chat. We'll still bring it to him as he speaks. I hope you're audible enough, the audience can hear you. Please leave a comment in the post if you can hear him well, if there's some hitches or anything like that. But I think from the way the chat looks, everything looks good. So, Professor, we have this challenge. I mean, that we don't know our Pan-Africanists, we don't know our professors, like, because of the curriculum of the education that was set on the continent. Most big professors like you actually, you know, we don't get the chance and opportunity to know them. Could you please, Professor, introduce yourself, what you have been doing? I mean, I already said it, but I like from the horse's mouth.
Thank you very much. At some of your introduction. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, I'm Professor Jean-Emmanuel Pondi. I'm Professor of Political Science and International Relations, and more specifically, African International Relations, which I define as being the relationship between Africa and the world and Africa. So it's a vast subject, really, because it encompasses history, international economics, international, geography, of course, law, international law. It's a vast domain when it comes to Africa. And my specialty within the specialty has been the Organization of African Unity, which was created on May 25th, 1963, and which changed into the African Union on 9th of July 2002. So I've been working a lot on these, I've been writing a lot on this, but also on other issues. I've written a lot of biographies of African political leaders and leaders in general. I've written a book on Nelson Mandela, which is called Nelson Mandela, An Example for Humanity. Another one on Thomas Sankara. It's called Thomas Sankara, the Emergence of Africa in the 21st Century. Even though he was killed in 1987, I managed to write a book on him concerning the 21st century. I wrote another book on Muammar Gaddafi, and it's called Life and Death of Muammar Gaddafi, What Lessons for Africa? Because I think we don't draw the lessons of what happens to Africa or to the Africans or to the African experience as a whole. So we need to actually reflect those in order to avoid history repeating itself over and over again. Those who don't learn from history are bound to repeat it and to repeat mistakes. So that's why I always go back and try to draw lessons so that the future is not similar to the past for us. I also wrote a book on Cheikh Anta Diop, and it's in French. It's called Cheikh Anta Diop dans la sphère des relations internationales, in the sphere of international relations. That's part of what I wrote concerning major figures. But I also wrote on understanding immigration from an African standpoint, understanding development from an African standpoint, and so on and so forth. So my idea is really to do a reading of the way the world functions, but according to our own standards, according to the way we see things, according to our values, our philosophies, our history, and not to be dictated what to think, how to think, according to other values, according to other philosophies. And I think that we've been drawn into that wagon, and that's why most of us are disoriented. We don't know where we're going to. We have hybrid personalities because we no longer Africans in the ancestral sense of a term, and we're not Europeans, of course, because we're not. We're not Americans in the sense which we be. So we have hybrid personalities which are not the best foundation for true development, for genuine progress. So we need to have our own foundation, which doesn't mean that we should exclude everybody. No. But we must be in a position to select what we want from the outside world insofar as it reinforces our own strength, if I may repeat myself. So basically, that's what I do. I've written a lot, as you said. You can go on Amazon. You will see, if you just put on my name, Jean-Emmanuel Pondi, Pondi, Jean, Emmanuel, and you will see there are a lot of books. I also have a YouTube channel with many of my lectures around in Africa and around the world. You will find them there on topics such as the myth of marginalization. They say Africa is marginalized, but you cannot be marginal compared to yourself. You are always the center of yourself. That is the normal position, I think. If you consider yourself marginal, it means that you belittle yourself. You don't consider yourself seriously, and therefore you take yourself as a marginal personality or a marginal continent. I think these are aberrations which we should not accept. You are the center of yourself, just as China is the center of itself, like Europe is the center of itself, and America the same thing. There's no reason why we should be imposed such things as marginalization. You cannot walk beside yourself. That viewpoint is not acceptable. So, in any ways, I just wanted to give a broad view of how my writings are conceived, and what is the purpose of those writings is to give the Africans a sense of who they are. I was listening to Professor James Small, the other day. He was a guest of yours, and I agree with him that as long as you don't know where you come from, it is an illusion to talk about not only the present, but worst of all, the future. It's not possible. And I think those who say that we exaggerate history, they're not right. Because there's no civilization that can move forward without looking backwards, not to remain backwards, but in order to precisely plunge ahead and go forward. So that's what I can say for now.
Thank you very much, Professor. And that's elaborate enough. We wanted an information, to know about this new Sahel Alliance of Africa, which is our topic that we had to treat today. But definitely, just a broad knowledge about what is important that we know about this alliance, because I think before the world would know, Africans should know the importance and the impact and the reason for its creation, and how we can actually profit and benefit and defend it with every means necessary. What is the Sahel Alliance of Africa?
All means necessary, like economics.
Yes.
Okay. In fact, I've given a lecture on that, as you may know, at the Diplomatic Academy of Vienna on the 5th of June, 2024, so very recently. And I would invite your listeners and your viewers, your audience, to have a look at it. It's on the YouTube channel of the Academy. So it's the Diplomatic Academy of Vienna. You will see in the YouTube channel, you will see that lecture. It's called State Integration or Disintegration. State building or state disintegration. An assessment of the dynamics of the Sahel state, Alliance of Sahel State in West Africa, 2024. So if you look into that, I approached the subject. In fact, what is the dilemma of what is happening in West Africa today? 3 countries, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, have opted to get out of the ECOWAS being the Economic Community of West African States, which is composed of around 16 states of West Africa, that is to say below the Sahara, where Ghana is, Liberia, Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, and so on. So they decided to opt out. And the reason, the question is why? Because the Economic Community of West African States, which was created in Lagos in 1975 with a revised charter in 1993, has as its principal aims to consolidate the well-being of the states which are member, economically speaking, and have also political stability. So what happens is that there have been coups d'etats in those countries, and the rest of the states, we used to be 16, as I said, so about 13, sanctioned those three states, saying that it is unconstitutional according to the ECOWAS chapter, and then therefore they ought to be excluded and sanctioned. Okay. Up to that time, it is normal procedure. But where things went wrong and derailed was precisely when there was talks of attacking them by African states, by their neighbors, their former allies, decided they wanted to attack them. And behind this was the hand of France. Okay? Why? Because the Malians expelled the French troops from Mali under the reason that they were supposed to fight jihadists, insurrectionists, but in fact, the so-called Islamic extremism went crescendo more and more. So they said after 10 years, after 15 years, the worth of the troops in Mali was almost null. They didn't see any reason to keep them there, so they asked them to go back to France. Instead of going back to France, they decided to go rather to Niger, which is strange. I mean, so Niger accepted them. And the problem in Niger is that Niger is the supplier of uranium of France. And 34% of the uranium which is used in France comes from Niger. And the French economy is basically a nuclear-based economy, civilian nuclear power, because they don't rely on electricity, which comes from the dams, for instance. It comes from the nuclear provenance. So they were in trouble when they were expelled from Niger, and from there they tried to go not back to France, but they tried to go to Chad. So you see, there's a problem. You're asked to be to go out and to go back to your country, and apparently that is not their aim, that is not their wish. So when the three countries saw that they were surrounded by former allies, former colleagues, who now wanted to attack them, they decided to retaliate by creating the Alliance of Sahel States. Okay. In French, Alliance des États Sahéliens. Is in French, acronym is AES. Mm-hmm. Okay. But it's Alliance of Sahel States, which was created in 2023, basically. And they said any attack on Niger will henceforth be interpreted and treated as an attack on the three states together. So, what in terms of theoretical analysis, this is called a defense pact. It's really a defense pact. Okay. So, because they did this, the countries who wanted to attack them, believe me or not, were spearheading that were Nigeria, Côte d'Ivoire, yes, and Senegal. So it's unbelievable, but it's true. So people think that they were manipulated. They were instrumentalized by the French and, of course, the Europeans, generally speaking. Because that was not the way the West wanted Africa to go, to react. That's to say, to challenge them and say, no, this is the red line. We're not, if you cross it, then you will see our reaction. They did not think it was possible in the 21st century to see Africans who dare actually challenge them. And those three countries who have three soldiers, three officers heading them, decided to challenge, especially France. They expelled the French. They expelled their military, and not only that, the United States of America was also expelled from the area. So you see that it's a very daring move, which for many was an example of courage, determination. So they decided only a few months ago, in 2024, to raise the level of their cooperation to create a confederation of Sahel states with a common foreign policy, and henceforth they will design, it's not done yet, but they're in the process of designing a common defense force. So you see, this could be the beginning for some of the Pan-Africanists of what ought to have been done long ago. You cannot have 55 states that decide to unite, perhaps. But if you have like that 5, 3, 6, 10, you have already a beginning of something. So today, these countries have decided to stop cooperating with France because the three of them are Francophone countries, meaning that the official language is French. My analysis is a bit different because I say when you take that part of West Africa, these were the very powerful, extremely rich African kingdoms. So today, we should not look at them as poor country. They're not poor. They've been impoverished, but they're not poor. Worst of all, their mental state has been also attacked by showing them that they were not able to actually make it. But now they're contradicting this. So my analysis in my conference, which I invite everyone to go and listen and watch, is to say that these are the ancient kingdoms which are reconstituting themselves. Okay, so what we have now, as opposed to what was there before you had states in Africa. Ghana, today's Ghana used to be called the Gold Coast, which means nothing in African history. Côte d'Ivoire means Ivory Coast, which in our cultural terms means absolutely nothing. And so on. Mali had a significance in African history, of course. So what we have in Africa, in my view, are states in Africa. Cameroon, Gabon, I don't know, Kenya, Nigeria. All these states have their origin in the Berlin Conference. You see, even their borders were not drawn by us. We were not consulted. None of us was around the table. The Berlin Conference took place between the 15th of November, 1884, and the 23rd of February, 1885. Okay, 1884, 1885. So the state we now present as states in Africa are that entities that were created through the will and the willpower of people who had nothing to do with us. I am not, and I want to say that clearly, advocating hatred. I'm not advocating hostilities between races, between civilizations, and so on. I'm not for that, but I'm for mutual respect of who we are. We demand respect. We demand consideration, and because that's normal. It's not something which is abnormal. So I'm saying that in my conference, I was showing that what we have today are states in Africa. And they say, the Europeans and the Western countries say that what is happening now in West Africa is illegal. The regimes have been toppled, and now they are led by military juntas, according to them, and so on. My response is that The constitutions that are used there are known by almost nobody. If you go to any African state, ask anyone you meet in the street to tell you the number of articles in the constitution of their country. 0.1% can tell you something interesting. They know nothing. So those constitutions they are claiming have been violated, I'm afraid, are known by almost nobody. Now they talk about the form of a state, they talk about democracy. The democracy they're talking about is Western style adversarial democracy, which is contrary to our consensual democracy, which we have in Africa, in traditional Africa. So in fact, what is being toppled now is the state in Africa. What might be in construction now is the African state. And what I mean by African state is an African that has a cultural foundation that stems from our own essence of who we are, our history, our anthropology, our civilization, our philosophies, our way of being. And I think when you take the states in that part of Africa, what do you have? Ghana, empire of the 9th century, okay? Ghana meaning, of course, land of gold. It means that it was an extremely rich empire. From there, and by the way, the Ghana Empire is not situated where current Ghana is. It's further north of current Ghana, which used to be called the Gold Coast. Okay. So the Ghana Empire transformed itself into a bigger entity, which was called the Mali Empire, the 14th century. The Mali Empire gave birth to an extremely rich empire that saw the richest man on earth of his time, Mansa Musa. Okay, I gave all these facts during my Vienna conference at the Diplomatic Academy. They were surprised to hear this. And then the Mali Empire grew geographically to become the Songhai Empire went all the way from where we left the Ghana Empire to the shore, to the borders of Nigeria. So you see the huge stretch of land that this empire constituted. These were multi-ethnic, multilingual, multi-civilizational empires. Okay, which means that we already had a mastery on how to handle bureaucracy, how to handle the political system with all its variety, how to handle the defense system. All this we knew how to do. I'm saying that we're experimenting. We actually did it. So what I'm saying is that when you take the alliance of Sahel states today, they are somewhat reconstituting that African state, which does make sense to the African, which has an African logic of solidarity, of Ubuntu, of mutual help, of empathy, and so on. I'm not saying that everything was in Africa. It was a land of milk and honey. No. There were conflicts, there were animosities, there were wars, but the dominant factor in Africa is the philosophy according to which the community comes first before the individual. Second, when there is a conflict, the societal harmony and societal symbiosis must be reconstituted. So you see, it's not like outside of Africa, when there's conflict, they are looking for who was right and who was wrong. The one who won the conflict have the winner takes all approach. And the one who lost, of course, is punished, sanctioned. What does it mean? It means that next time around, there will be another conflict, inevitably. But the African approach is to save the face of the loser, so that not to humiliate him or her, or if the country or community, not to humiliate that community, but rather to insert them in the global societal harmony. So that is the philosophy of Africa. And that philosophy is not known by Westerners in general, and we get the Northerners, okay, the Northern Hemisphere. So all this is a state, the characteristic of a state. Constitutional politics is the name of a game in Africa. So I'm claiming that what is happening is more than just trying to build a new Africa, is to build an African-oriented state philosophically, economically, and I would say civilizationally speaking. Okay.
Oh, thank you so very much, Professor. It's like, yeah, I mean, unveiling the cake. I also followed those lectures where you talked about, no, the first thing when I came to your office and I talked about colonial masters, you said, no, these are colonial administrators, and that we should never say somebody was ever a master for Africa. Over to you.
No. Well, yeah, because when you say master, it means a slave. And when you say yourself master, it means that you accept that denomination, you accept that injustice, and which is not really acceptable. But I hear many Africans who say that the former colonial masters were here. When the colonial masters were here, they did this, they did that. And most of Africans tend to date their history with the beginning of the terrible effects of the Berlin Conference. They don't know that they had 400,000 years before that. What did we do? How did we master the universe during those 400,000 years? You don't have any trace of that because it's been built, it's been burned, it's been made sure that it disappears. And they tell you that you didn't have cities, you didn't have written traces, you didn't have civilizations because you didn't speak either English or French or whatever, or Portuguese. Therefore, you had no languages. This is ridiculous, of course. It doesn't make sense. Unfortunately, many Africans have digested that and have taken that to be the truth. This is sad and this is pathetic, in my view.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Professor, I heard you also in a conversation that we had in your library said, African, because we always talking about we never had a military base, like, the three great leaders coming together. Senegal is also, being a part, like they could form a military force. But you told me no, Africa had and was that we had that.
Yes,
am I correct?
Course. Well, if you take the ancient Africa in ancient times, we had a very strong military basis. The Amazons, the term Amazons come precisely from West Africa, and they were women warriors, very tough warriors, very ruthless, even extremely difficult to beat. Okay, they were women and they were warriors, the Amazons. But when you move away from that, you have the Zulu kingdom that defeated the British, as you know, in the 19th century. You have another battle, which was the epic battle, which is called the Adwa battles, where the Ethiopians defeated the Italians in 1896. Okay, that was in Adwa in Ethiopia. Mm-hmm. So, and the Italians tried again under Mussolini to stage another battle against the Ethiopians, and they were defeated again. So you will not hear all this, of course, you will not, because what we hear is the history of those who defeated us and controlled us. But it doesn't mean that those facts are not existent. They exist. But that's the history we have to teach our children. The First World War, Second World War, which were wars that were foreign by interest, absolutely foreign. Now, let's talk about nuclear power, okay? Because I think it is in that context that I told you that it is absolutely senseless. Doesn't make sense for the Africans to want to go to the Security Council empty-handed and with their only speeches to make. No one will listen to us and will be ridiculous there. As far as I'm concerned, we have the nuclear weapon. Why? It was experimented in the Kalahari Desert in July 1981. I'm giving all these dates so that your audience, our friends who are listening to us, can go and check. And that was experimented in the Kalahari Deserts by South Africa, which by then was racist South Africa, apartheid South Africa. And they were helped in the manufacturing of that atomic bomb by Israel and France. Okay? But my point is that the scientists or the teams of scientists who were able to manufacture the nuclear weapon cannot undo it. Okay? They cannot undo it. It means that that technology, that know-how is still in Africa. If not them, their descendants are able to actually continue. So the United Nations were quick to ban what they call the proliferation of nuclear weapons in the world. And they made us sign the Penindaba Treaty, which is a treaty that forbids the spread of nuclear weapons in the world, beginning with Africa. So we signed it. All African countries signed it. But you can't unsign what you have signed if you think that it's no longer in your interest. This is what is called cas de force majeure, where you go back and retrieve what you did because you think that it is no longer in your interest. So I'm saying that Africa is a nuclear power, which ignores itself because precisely we have been we have withdrawn for ourselves the capacities which were done in other circumstances by other actors in Africa, but which were on the African soil.
That is massive. This is so correct. This is so correct. Thank you so much, Professor, for this analysis. Of course, we are a nuclear power, and nobody ever thought about this. What did you say that treaty was again?
Penindaba Treaty.
Penindaba Treaty.
Penindaba, yes, it's a town in South Africa. It's and the content of it is to prohibit what they call the proliferation of nuclear weapons, meaning precisely that it's good for the five who sit on the Security Council to have nuclear weapon, but it's absolutely bad and irresponsible for the others to do so.
Yes,
that didn't Pakistan and India and Israel certainly to have a nuclear weapon. They do have it.
Wow, I mean, this is fantastic. I mean, it's good to know that. Another question, Professor. I don't know. It just slipped off my head as we talked about the nuclear thing. Yes, curriculum. You also mentioned the curriculum, and I liked the way you put it in front of this in that lectures in Vienna, Austria, when you said, "Isn't it ridiculous that they said, you know, a Portuguese would discover this?" I mean, could you just explain it again the way you put it, Professor? It was amazing.
Yes, during the conference at the Diplomatic Academy in Vienna, I really wondered whether what we teach to our own children makes sense. How can we tell them, the young generation, that we were discovered by the Portuguese in Africa? It doesn't stand to reason. It is absolutely incomprehensible. You cannot be in your own country, living there for centuries and centuries. People come as visitors passing their way, or I don't know, doing what, and they discover you. Whereas it is you who should discover them instead. And then we teach that to our children, that we were discovered by the Portuguese. For the case of Cameroon, the date is 1472. This doesn't make sense. Because in Cameroon, precisely, just an example, we have a kingdom which is called the Bamum Kingdom, which was created in 1397. 1394. 1394 created. So how come that you come to discover people who already were living in such a kingdom? By the way, that kingdom still exists today in an uninterrupted manner. All the kings who are called sultans are listed date after date in succession, which they were able to operate. So you can go there today. It's in the western part of Cameroon. You will go there. You will see the current one is the 21st successor to the throne since 1394. So I'm just taking that example to show the absurdity. You cannot discover people. Now, what they discovered, yes, indeed, they discovered the extent of the ignorance. That they discovered. Yes, I agree entirely. The only thing that they discovered was the extent of the ignorance or the existence of this. So, but to say that we discover you is an egocentric approach, which says that we only what we see is of importance, and we decide what is important, what is not, and we decide, in fact, who you are or who you are not, according to us. So these are like what? Semi-gods. We need to be serious. So we should not, in our curricula, never teach such absurdities to our children. We should take it out. Nobody discovered us but ourselves. And we were the oldest civilization on earth. We discovered the rest of the world. If there's anybody to discover other people or civilizations, it's us. When we who could discover us? We could discover everything on earth, of course. This is not being arrogant when we say that. These are chronological facts of history. So that's what I would say about our curricula, which are dangerous curricula.
Really dangerous, honestly.
Yes.
Professor, you also talked about the situation of I just need to get my head back on that focus. Of course, yes, there was this question that kept coming up about the Sahel Alliance and the impact of Russia being in that, and like people were, kind of like, is it because Russia is spreading its conspiracy against Ukraine and stuff like that? And I loved the way you put it, and I would like you share that opinion and that lecture with our audience when you say Africa has a right to choose over.
Yes. I told them some, I would say, unsettling truths. Because there comes a moment when we must have the courage to tell the truth. We are not children. We should not continue to be treated as if we had no brains. We had no capacity of thinking for ourselves what is good for us and what is not good for us. So in this Russia-Ukrainian conflict, I told them that we were not interested in that, not at all. And there are many things that make Africans reluctant to engage into such a conflict in which they have nothing to do. And I told them the first thing is the way they treated our children there. They were beaten, they were brutalized. I didn't say that during the conference itself.
Mm-hmm.
It escaped me. I needed to tell them that, but it escaped me. The first point is the way our children, African children, were brutalized in Ukraine. and sometimes in Russia too. Because according to what is called humanitarian law, it's the law of the war, it is the responsibility of the host nation to protect third parties who are not party to the conflict. Our children were there for one reason: to go to the universities or to schools there. They were not combatants, and they were had very badly handled. They were roughly treated, and they were even denied the right to get on the trains and go to places where there's no war. They were kept somewhat, quote unquote, prisoners. So I said that we saw that on our TV screen. We saw that on the social media, which they sent to us. We cannot ask them, can you love people who hate your children? It's not possible. So that's the first thing. The second thing why we cannot support anybody in that war is the fact that NATO killed Muammar al-Gaddafi on the 20th of October, 2011. NATO was maneuvering and finally succeeded in killing him. So we as Africans cannot support NATO in any adventure that NATO starts to direct. We cannot. Because by killing Muammar al-Gaddafi, they knew what they were doing. Muammar al-Gaddafi was not a saint. He was not a saint. He ordered the killing of civilian planes. It's true. But Muammar al-Gaddafi is one of the few African leaders who heavily invested in African integration and African unity. Heavily. I mean, in terms of billions of dollars. So we cannot judge Muammar al-Gaddafi on the grounds of your hostility and tensions which were real with the West. They had terrible relationships. But that is their problem. It's not our problem. We have to judge him according to what he did, even though he started badly with Black Africa, because he attacked the Hausa Strip, which is the border between Chad and Libya. They wanted to annex, that is to say, to conquer part of Chad. That's how they started with their intercourse with Africa, and Black Africa, I mean. And of course, they lost at the Court of Justice. That's after that loss, they started more convivial relationship with Black Africa. So we started also badly, but things went well, especially when he helped to create the African Union. Without Muammar al-Gaddafi, I doubt it that the African Union would have been created. Okay, so we cannot support a military structure that used the United Nations, abuse of United Nations through Resolution 1973 to actually kill a sitting president who was still officiating as president. This is the first in the modern history. So I told them that we cannot support you. Now, the third thing that I told them is that don't think that Africans are so stupid that they leave a context of constraint to voluntarily go to another context of constraint. No, and no, we are not stupid. What we are doing is we are looking for partners who will help us momentarily to get rid of people who abuse Africans, have no respect for Africans, but we don't go looking for another quote-unquote master. No. We look for a partner, and I think Mr. Putin was warned in no uncertain terms that it is not a question of controlling us, dictating us what he wants, and so on, in for that. So what I told them is that we know what we are doing. Today, Africa has a big array of choices. We can choose between multiple partners who are longing, in fact, to be with us. Turkey, Japan, Saudi Arabia, China, Russia, I don't know. There are so many of them. Brazil, and so on and so forth. So now we use those alliances according to our interests, according to the maximization of our interest, just the way they've been doing for the last centuries. So that's what I told them, that therefore it is a reduction in analysis to think that Mr. Putin is controlling Africa, Mr. Putin is the reason why the Africans have been lost to them, quote unquote, because you see the possession game for them. We are merchandise which they must possess, they must control, and they must master. We say no to that. And I told them that the Africans are no longer interested in your so-called international aid. Buy things at the right price at the world market. That's all we're asking today. And I think the young generation, of which I'm not part of, and for which I'm not a spokesperson, but I'm with them every day on campuses, so I know what to think, and I know what they tell me. They don't want international aid anymore. What they want is to buy our products at the right price according to international pricing in the world. If they do that, we don't need international aid, because international aid is another way of controlling people. So I told them all that. And I told them also that they must understand that the reason why Africans are migrating away from Africa is not because they want to do that. It's because conditions are hard in Africa. Why are they hard? Because the jobs which are supposed to be created with our own economies are exported, because we export raw material. When you export raw material, you diminish the chain of transformation of those products. And therefore, you sell cheap products and you buy very dear items back. So it creates, of course, poverty. No money, no jobs. People will immigrate. They will immigrate. Emigrate, meaning leaving. Immigrate, meaning coming in. So I'm saying that particular dynamics must stop. We must be able to impose the fact that we must create jobs and not export raw materials from Africa. We must export materials with added value already. So I think that is very important.
Wonderful. Wow, Professor. I mean, of course, you have actually unveiled the new Sahel Alliance, the AES, and of course, I know, Marshall, you're saying you're coming late. You just have to go through this conversation again. But Professor will be here next week, Thursday or Friday. Please just check. We're going to announce it. Today was not possible because of technical issues. And also, Professor, the last thing I just want is the transfer of knowledge and skills, and like the opportunity that the continent has to be able to host, students from abroad, our diasporans and the migrants through the ICT University in Cameroon, where you are the vice chancellor. I saw this beautiful program, and it's the first time I can say. I mean, I've gone through the curriculum and the schools and institution while we're talking about the issue of connecting our diaspora back home. I never saw an institute that addressed particularly the diasporas, to enroll their children, whether on campus or online, and in that kind of a world-class information and communication technology university,
Yes.
like the one that you are chancelling. Can you just tell us about that program? And I learned your back to school is coming back. Oh, wait, Professor, wait. I think I need to share this first before you get to that topic. I already, first of all, put just the campus, but I just want to share this with the audience while you take this answer. Just look at their back to school, how it's going to take place on Monday. Please.
Welcome to the ICT University, an institution dedicated to producing skilled professionals equipped to meet global job market demands. The ICT University operates a US-based curriculum to provide quality ICT and managerial human capacity development, focusing on Africa, Latin America, the Caribbean, and Asia. Committed to delivering top-tier education in ICT and related fields, this University of the Future has two faculties: the Faculty of Information and Communication Technologies and the Faculty of Business Management and Sustainable Development. The ICT University follows the American academic system with 3 semesters per year, with the learners exposed to the innovative fields of artificial intelligence and robotics through online and on-site studies. These under the academic supervision of Professor Emmanuel Pondi, the distinguished Vice Chancellor of ICT University. The ICT University is the brainchild of Professor Victor Barika, President of the Board of Trustees.
Wow. I must tell my audience that, this program, particularly with Professor Pondi and the other students of this ICTU that I saw that are doing amazing, I'm telling you, amazing projects, most of them youth for the future, is really recommendable. And this is a partner program that we're collaborating together to connect the diaspora and the continent through education. It means most of us are always looking how we can come back home, how we can send our children, how we can back them up with the skills and the knowledge of the continent. I think one of the connecting and uniting factors is through, studying on the continent of Africa. Over to you, Professor.
Yes, thank you very much for this ad which you put. And we want on that ICT University, mind you, because we received you on our campus, and you came to visit our facilities to see where we are, and we were extremely happy to welcome you, and we'll be happy to continue our collaboration. Because the good thing about ICT technology, I would say, is that you don't need really to necessarily to move. You can contribute to the growth of Africa. You can contribute to the improvement of Africa from where you are already. Because we have the global African continent, which is really on the 5 continents of the earth. And we must henceforth understand that we can contribute, each of us in his own way, to make the continent a more prosperous one, a more important one, and a more decisive one in the way the world has been run. Because we should not stand on the sideline and look at what is happening. We must be actors. We shouldn't be afraid. We should not be afraid of talking about seeking power. Just all continents are seeking for power. Why not us? So these tools are there to improve ourselves, to enrich ourselves in many ways. But the greatest wealth is the wealth of knowledge, which have been withdrawn from us. Our facts and the knowledge of ourselves has been twisted, and we are all poorer because we don't know ourselves. And I think that if you don't know yourself, please don't talk about changing anything. Start by there. So we are encouraging our students to develop applications to solve concrete problems. We don't want abstract thinking only. Abstraction is good insofar as it brings you towards practicality, to solve practical problems. And we have many problems to solve in Africa and in the diaspora, African diaspora. We need to create the tools ourselves to do so. We can, and we are doing it already, but we must put more emphasis in investment in knowledge. Today is a knowledge-based economy, knowledge-based society, and we as Africans, in the larger sense of the term, meaning Afro-descendants, we must understand that investment in knowledge is the first investment that counts. And we have a lot of trouble understanding that, unfortunately. You cannot reap where you didn't sow. It's important for us to engage our finances, our wealth in the domain of knowledge, so that we can control for ourselves a big part of our own lives. This is very important. So I would say that the ICT University is a good partner for whoever wants to come there. It's open to all Africans. It's open to all African descendants. It's open to the entire world. It's not only Africans. Those who come from other continents are welcome on condition that we have great and serious respect and consideration for who we are. That is absolutely a must. We cannot accept to be continuously belittled and actually embarrassed. It's not possible anymore. So this is what I would say. And I would again plead with the audience to watch that particular conference at Vienna. I think that most of what has been said today will be present there, and those arguments we can continue if they have questions next time or any other subjects. One of the subjects which I like a lot is the way OAU was born, because there's a lot of misconceptions about the birth of the Organization of African Unity. And I think I've studied that for ages, for long years. And I have many things to say about that kind of Pan-Africanism, which needs to be thoroughly scrutinized.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much. We appreciate you. I know it's late out. It's late, not late as due to our show, but at least the one last takeaway was the way you explain African social system and community, and the time factor as opposed to how the world sees us. Can you just only a little bit, because I love the way you put it. Of course, I know it, and but the way you put it, Professor, in front of this conference, I was like, wow. And I could see the diplomat from Mali who was so impressed and said, I've been a diplomat all my life. I've gone to all world conference, but I've never heard an African professor spoke direct truth to power in the face of orders and actually defending Africa, particularly the way you put the new alliance of Africa, the Sahel region, the way you defended these three generals, the way you pushed forward, even when they were asking questions like, oh, are you sure they're supported by their people? Is some kind of thing like they broke the law? What did you have to say about the African social system? That's quite interesting.
It was bloodless. It was a bloodless rule. In all these cases, there was no blood. In all these cases. First thing. The second thing is they say, okay, it were unconstitutional. And I told you already what I think about our knowledge of constitution. Most of them we have not yet written for a start. Okay. Now, there are replicas of what happens in the West or in the northern hemisphere, with no real regard of our own ways of doing things. As I said, we are basically consensual politics. That's how we manage our things. Okay. Now, talking about the time factor, I told them that we are always criticized for being late. Africans don't respect time. When you tell them to come at 9 o'clock, they show up at 10 o'clock, and so on and so forth. Which is true. And I'm not saying it's a good thing, no, because we need to also migrate into the society today. But in ancestral Africa, in ancient Africa, in the old African civilization, that is where we come from. And our DNA respond to who we are. And when you look closely into the way we behave, what do you see? The Africans do not have time in the Western sense of a term. That's exist for us. To say that I'm coming to visit you at 9 o'clock and so on, and if 5 minutes after 9 you say you are late, I'm angry at you, and no, we don't behave that way. The way we deal with time is what I call moments, not time. We divide the day in our traditional Africa according to early morning from 5 o'clock till around 8. The morning from 8 to around 11. Late morning, which is around 12. And then early afternoon, mid-afternoon, and late afternoon. Okay? So you can see 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and then 6 o'clock. And then at night, of course. So when in a village, someone tells you, I'm coming to visit you tomorrow in your village, he will tell you that I will come early in the morning. Wait for me midday. Wait for me late afternoon. That's how we present the time. We don't present the time by the clock. I'll be there at 2 o'clock. I'll be there at 3 o'clock. No, we don't do that. So what we know really are the moments. And we respect moments. But we don't know the time in the time. Okay, I told them that any African who is in Switzerland is punctual. Is very punctual. Any African who is in Belgium or in France, they are punctual. Why? Because the environment there is like that. But also what I said, which is important, is that we no longer live in ancestral times or in purely African contexts. We now live in a mixed civilization. So we must, of course, adapt ourselves. But I was just trying to explain why we don't see a problem with not respecting time in the sense of the second. No, because in our DNA, that's not the way we function. So I was just trying to explain that. But I also recognize that now, of course, if you have a contract to sign at 10 o'clock, it's a very heavy and important contract, and you show up at 12, you're in trouble. In today's world, you're in trouble. Okay? But we need, as Africans, to understand ourselves. It's very important. And not always to be ashamed of ourselves because we don't know ourselves. So that was really my effort there.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you again. Thank you. Together we are one. And actually, Professor, next week, I think you have the presentation, like, it will be possible that we can do the presentation like navigating and them going to wash through that. I think that's too much privilege. If you do the presentation with us, we're going to upload it to your YouTube. And so even us can download it, because I saw the whole presentation. And and just a good night question. I saw the question that was asked that was very, very unfriendly, when one of the colleagues or the audience said, I don't agree, I disagree with your opinion about everything that you say here. I mean, like, that's not the Africa is different from what you're trying to I mean, when you listen to that and you said, I'm used to, what did that actually entail, Professor?
Okay. The person who asked the question, prior to that, introduced himself. He said, I'm the Director of African Affairs at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of my country, of Austria. That's how he presented himself. Okay. And then he said, I therefore deal with African issues on a daily basis. Trying to... He thought he pressed me, maybe. Okay. And then he said, okay, all that you're saying, I don't agree with what you're saying. To which I responded that, sir, it is your perfect right to disagree with everything that I say. But I live in Africa. I come from Africa. And I've been studying Africa for the last 35 years. And I've been... Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. And I've been to 38 of the 55 African states personally, where my foot has set has settled on those soils. So the Africa I'm talking about is not an abstract entity. And when you talk to me about Mali, about South Africa, about Eritrea, which is very hard to get to, I was there. about, of course, Kenya, Senegal, Nigeria, all these countries. I've been there. So I told him that, sir, I'm not just fantasizing about an Africa which is in my head. No. And I told him that what you think is Africa is in your head also. But the difference, of course, is that I'm telling you things which I have been able to discuss with all strata of Africans. He only speaks with the so-called decision makers. These are the people he knows or thinks he knows. But I deal with the civil society. I deal with people who claim to be in opposition parties. I, of course, deal with the decision makers who are in power. Of course, I deal with the academic world. I deal with the non schooled Africans who have been to school and so on. So I think I can say something about Africa, which my conscience makes sense. I told him that straight, okay, and I told him that you have the right not to believe what I'm saying or even to adhere to what I'm saying. It's right, but I will always tell you what I think. So he talked about elections. He says that no, elections are now fine in Africa. He gave some examples. Did not really, but and I told him that we know how elections are organized in many African states. Many of them are rigged. And you cannot win because of the way they are planned and so on. And there are few countries in Africa that have sincere, genuine elections, but are few and far between. I told him all that, and I told him that I've seen many where the procedures were not correct, but the results were given and they were immediately accepted by the West because the people they wanted there are the ones who actually, quote unquote, won elections. So this kind of masquerade must stop. So I told him all that. I think you heard, but he was not happy. And at the end, I told him that we must be respected. What we have to say as Africans is not to please you or to displease you. We must tell things according to what we honestly believe. And we must have the courage to tell the truth. Whether that truth hurts or pleases is not our problem. We as academicians, we as university people must do research, and the fruits of that research must be thrown to the world to see the truth according to our research. African research is not different from other research. You have good research and you have bad research. And I think we must not shy away from telling the truth. That is our responsibility as academics, as scholars, I think.
Wow, thank you. I know we could say a lot because I was there and everything, but let's keep it for another day. Thank you so much, very much, Professor,
Okay.
and really thank you
My
for your
pleasure.
intervention. And I wish you a happy back to school on Monday at the
Thank you.
institute. And I really miss those young people that we had conversations with, and we'll be hosting them on the Pan-African Daily to share their inspiration and the things they are creating to solve problems on the
Yes.
continent of Africa. Thank you very much, Prof.
They have many. Thank you so much, and thank you for hosting me. I'm really very touched by that, and I want to thank you sincerely.
Thank you very much, Prof. Good night. Bye.
Good.
Okay, good people. Thank you so very much. I hope you had a feel of the new Sahel Alliance, and every particular in that package. So we all do know we are on the right track. That's just the message. To be able to explain the configuration and the power and the energy that is surrounding this alliance is of concern to us, particularly advocating for one Africa. I think there is no better way, like the professor put it. It starts by just three. And you know what the figure and the number three is all about. It starts with three, and then five, and then seven. Imagine if we have 10. If we have just 10, game over. So it was very quite interesting to get this perspective. Of course, I know about the Sahel Alliance, but I've never been in a situation where at that conference with the way he explained things, and he was talking to the global West, to the global North. Okay, the at this Academy of Diplomacy in Austria, you can imagine the kind of people that were on this roundtable, and this professor had to say it the way it was. There were a lot of disagreement on comforts and stuffs that were not actually, but you could feel that energy. Students that had been teaching at this academy for 20 years, um, professors, women from all walks of life, both European and that, it was just like a breakthrough, like an eyes to say, we have never heard this kind of lectures. We have never heard this kind of point of view, an African perspective on matters that are serious about the freedom, about freeing Africa and Africans by Africans. It was impossible. Even when he talked about the issue of Africa had always owned the Navy, we had always gone to war. It was impossible. There were people that disagreed, kept disagreeing, and like, no, that cannot be true. That kind of arrogance. I mean, like, just that kind of arrogance in your face. You are talking about your continent. You are a daughter, a son of that continent. And you are talking about your continent to a foreigner who claims, I know your country more than you. Come on, give me a break. I was like, I mean, you know us. If you were sitting behind us, you know what would have happened. I mean, some people would just get the backlash just like that, because it is such of disrespect for us that when we speak among non-Africans who claim they have been to Africa, they have visited Africa, they have done African studies, that they know Africa more than you. It is so disrespectful. It is so irresponsible. I mean, even us being in the West as foreigners, I can never claim that I know, this entity more than the people themselves. That is really ridiculous. And it's a shame to do such a thing. And he actually really did not even, bother. He was so cool. I mean, like, that question and other questions that came up, if I was the person, to be honest with you, no, I didn't have such patience to really go through the way he broke it down, the way he's still like, I was like, come on, I would just get up and like, you know what? So, but honestly, I think this is the level of quality that we're talking about, quality information, quality research coming out actually from African themselves, what they think about the Africa. And even there were some questions like, oh, they hijacked, or they did it. And the professor said, did you see any people marching against them? Who were those people, the troops that were being asked to leave and go back home? I mean, like, literally, you are on people's continent and they tell you go back home, and you go to a neighboring country. And the neighbor said, no, please go. I don't have space for you. I've had enough. The job that I paid you to do for 20 years, that I didn't see any success in it. Please, can you just go? And you turn again and pick your things and go to another neighbor's house and complain there like a baby, like, I don't want to go back home. What's wrong with your country, France? What is just wrong? What is wrong with your country? Like, you don't want to go back. You see, so that's the attitude that, these three powerful African young leaders took it to them and said, no, it cannot. And actually, it was not a disrespect like a lot of people we saw in some of the conservative, medias, how, they disrespected ECOWAS, who was their father, and this and that. And I'm like, come on, give me a break. If your father will not even don't even know what is necessary and truthful, I mean, at some point, the young generation have to take it by force. They have to take that leadership by force. And if they did not have to do that, and so it begin to really come, actually CNS entitled, yes, that's what entitlement is like. No, it's us. And now the new narrative is changing. You know what? But at the end of the day, we are all Africans now. Didn't you say we all come from Africa? I bet you, dear Pan-African Daily TV followers, dear family here, you would hear that one day. It takes just a little bit of time before you begin to even understand that at some point, honestly, we would be considered Europeans, and the real Europeans would be considered Africans. So I think the knowledge of self, like the professor was saying, it's just on point. And to come back to the ICT University, I was there. I know the idea of doing the American standards. No, it's absolutely, I think, just from the way they design the campus and the leather chairs and the sophisticated material, that was that. And of course, the project also from this Professor Mbarika, who became, I think, the youngest West African to have a PhD, I think at the age of 23 or 24. And so the administration in studying in, I don't know what, some of those universities out there, and the country actually recognized him. I think it was the government of Joe Biden, and decided to ask, what is it that you want me to give for your community and your people? And he said, education. But you go from the staff to their program to their curriculum, like you can see the vice chancellor, you know his mentality, you hear his ideas. So what kind of thing can that kind of a professor do to copy and paste? No, that's actually a misconception. And on the continent, at some point, when you brand it and say, no, it's a world-class kind of stuff, people are still really not in their selves to accept their identity, and that's a challenge for us. That's a challenge for us. Like, I mean, even on the continent for so long, when I said, oh no, how can you leave the West to come back here? What is happening? Are you normal? Why are you coming back into this kind of? So our people need a lot of education, conscious education, awareness. Okay, they need it, like, just, I don't know how to say. Every other thing is there, but the knowledge of self, of who we are, is the only thing that I think would save us now. And we are on that. We are not just on that, but of course, we are also coming out actually to build this intelligence with really strategic curriculum and programs that I and followed. I talked to all of them. That's just all they need. Like the professor said, no, we are not for aid anymore. We don't want to hear about gift. We don't want to hear about donor programs. We want you to buy our commodities at the world price so that we can live too. Don't subvention it. Don't throw your trash on the continent. Like I said, the Chinese are taking out everything from our hands. I mean, it looks like, but you buy, I mean, like, you buy something before you get home is bad. When we used to grow up as a teenager going to school, those were the kind of products we used to have from Nigeria. And we're like, you buy a fan or a TV or a radio, anything, like you get home, you play it once, it's dead. But it's the same thing China is doing today in Africa. They just just brandish everything, but the kind of quality, the low quality, and you begin to understand why Africans have so much money. Because here we buy one and use for how many 15 years, but in Africa they buy regularly. Okay, so yes, I'll be happy for us to get Professor Pondi as part of our professors in actually in our list. As you can see, it was the first day, it was the first time. And actually, Professor Pondi is actually from French-speaking Cameroon, but a native of the Douala Bantu people, yeah, and of the Bassa particularly the Bassa tribe in Cameroon, very, very indefeatable Pan-Africanists. I'm telling you, just amazing. And like I said, I got to his library. I went again the next day. I just went for the first time to get to know him, talk about Pan-African Daily, talk about our projects and stuff. But I ended up going there the whole weekend. I went back home, came back, went camp, came, went camp, came, and it's incredible. So now, even at that faculty, this Professor Baraka has decided to give another building in honor of him. And in that faculty is only going to be the knowledge of who we are, Pan-Africanism, period, nothing else. And of course, he's looking up also for us and are networking with other professors like Professor Baina, Professor James Small, and other top professors in the diaspora to make this dream work. What more else can we talk about? So we only have to begin to equip with ourselves, really equip ourselves on this kind of good news and this kind of content, professional content. It's not just, post anything and just say anything the way we like, but actually research post, like the one that Professor Jume is always here, and you feel it. This is quality, and I think that's one of the what I say, the harvest from Pan-African Daily TV: quality content, quality lectures, quality audience, quality, community of conscious Africans who know what they want, who know where they're going to. I mean, like, he was even asking me, like, what would your audience want to hear? I say, Professor, you don't need to tell them anything. This audience here is a conscious community. And and that's why he was giving referrals, because I said, this audience is very challenging, very awoke. So make sure any reference you're putting, please make sure that we're going to check you and come back to you. And so, that's the kind of knowledge I think we would spend our time here having quality time. Of course, there's also going to be times where we just come, blah, blah, enjoy ourselves, get to know, that kind of serious. And he said it in that conference. He said, African people, we laugh a lot. And that's why the world doesn't take us serious. But touch us at a place where we need to, then you know what type of brand of people we are. Because he was just cool, the way he did his presentation, everything was just so nice. They keep punching, questions, ridiculous questions, and he was just cool. Most of them, he just laughed. Like when the gentleman said, "Oh, I don't believe you," in such an aggressive way. I just kept my fingers crossed and like, Professor, please do not even show your weakness, like respond to that, because that's how they provoke us, and then call you're aggressive, or you're this, you're overacting, hyperactive and stuff like that. But he was cool. And he laughed and he said, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that you should disagree. Of course, on what am I counting? I'm not counting on anything. We don't look alike. We're not the same. So let's disagree, but that's your opinion. Okay. And you have your right to your opinion. And I told him exactly that's the spirit of Pan-African Daily TV here. We don't disagree with anybody. Anybody's opinion is your own. But we as Africans, and for the development of Africa by us, we know what we want. We just know what we are, who we are, and we know what we want. And that's the most amazing thing. That's really the most amazing thing that is happening. So people, we are good. We're on track. We have to just continue to really kind of like get a lot of this content. I mean, a lot of these leaders, young leaders that keep, evolving and coming on. And I'm very sure Senegal is going to join, and other West African countries, and also the East and Southern Africa countries. Why not? Why not? So I'm truly proud. And yeah, we're still going to, I was still going to share the conversation between Professor Baina and me meeting on the continent in Cameroon, all the stuff that we did, the experiences that we had, and also the challenges that we saw, which are huge challenges in terms of like liquidity. People have liquidity, but you can just buy. Lack of raw materials, supplies. We wanted to get, fabrics that are made on the continent, and we see that also the trade alliance is somehow working, but absolutely slow. too slow. You know, the free market zone, but we're going to talk about that some other time. The Africa Free Trade Continental Area that was launched in 2021. Absolutely, it's like I don't know, millipedes are faster. Millipedes are faster is like a snail. It's so slow because that free market zone, of course, it will take a lot. According to Agenda 2063 or 2030, it would take time to customize all that free zone, break down all those borders and stuff like that. But we already see the Sahel doing it in a perfect and a simple way, and it didn't take 60 years. It did not. So I can imagine if we had just 10, 15 other leaders like Traore and his team, would have been packing all of us. They would have been shipping us back home anyway. So I want to thank you. Yes, we I don't know about that. I just don't know. Coffee, I welcome you here. Cheryl, Snovia. I mean, all this community of I don't know how to call you again. Daughters and sons of the soil, Marshall, reparations, right? HAK. I mean, all of you, David, I see you again, our handsome man, who is always saying the beautiful Dr. Tatah. Yes. Okay. Of course. Stephen Ethiel, I'm so happy to see us. Stevie, I heard you when you said, you know what, that's not a model. Please, let's just not go there. And that's why I was so quick to tell you, oh, Stevie, if I bring something, then trust it, okay? I mean, you can just trust it. If I bring something, I say, this is our project. And you have to understand there's a lot of diplomacy going on. And we have to learn diplomacy. We have to learn diplomacy. We have to learn the African diplomacy. You know, like, you know, a lot. That's how the world has been operating. And why not? And he said it. We have a right to choose our partners now. Is there anything wrong with it? And we're not supporting any person's interest. Who told you that we're going to support Russia? Because the alliance and these three gentlemen told Russia clean and clear. We're not living from frying pan to pot or from pot to frying pan or to fire. Okay? I mean, we know what we want. We are in business. Give and take. If it doesn't fit me, hey, pack and leave. You just saw I sent to your subordinates or your colleagues. And that's the African neo-narrative. Whether at your job site, whether in your colleagues, whether in church, whether in meetings places, it has to be a win-win. Anything at any level that you're doing, but it's in a relationship, it has to be on a win-win because that's the fairness and that's the solidarity of Africa. Okay, it's a win-win thing. No, not lose, win, all this inculcated, you know, all this, I don't know, mindset and cultures that we've adopted and become self-centered, selfish, and other things that doesn't work. That's not African. And that's what the professor was trying to actually bring forth to say, now there's no turning back. At least we have an example to show for. Even if we have to rally like ADDI and Dr. Arikana to rally the force to say, you know what, let's first deal with this three. Let's start with that and leave others. They will wake up in time. They will meet us when we're already there. And he told you about the military force that we used to have, the Amazons. Of course, the military of the woman. I'm waiting, Snovia. Cheryl, I'm waiting. Stevie, I'm waiting. I'm waiting. Okay. So Afra-Kana Swahili TV. Thank you, Jambo. Thank you for being here. Ian. Oh my God, the Buffalo Soldiers are here. Okay. You'll be the next on the show because Brother Yan, I've been seeing you in Antigua Barbuda and you actually doing some kind of like, wait a minute. I mean, like you're putting it together like we are doing it right here. I congratulate you, brother. And I can't wait to have you and your team on the Pan-Afrcan Daily TV. I can see the renaissance. It's totally like a whole, you know, I follow you. I mean, like you literally doing what I can say King Maponga is doing. Go down to the caves, go to the nature, and you work with your whole colleagues and the whole community. And you even going to schools teaching about Pan-Africanism and Africa and stuff like that. Brother, hey, who, chapeau. Okay, enough respect for you, and I can't wait to have you on Pan-African Daily to share the Buffalo Soldier movement. Back to the land, back to the land. So yes, good. We were not even anticipating. Look, just like all our lectures when they come in, like, how long would it take? And he'd been watching. I mean, he's a colleague and a friend of Professor James Moore. It's like, the way Professor says it, I don't think I have that energy that I'll come and we'll be talking for 2 hours. What are we going to be talking about, Dr. Tatah? I said, just come. But you see, we brewed 1.5, 1 hour, 40 minutes, and we were still going to go. Imagine if he was live where we could actually, feel him. I think this would really be, yeah, the accurate. People, I thank you. There's a lot coming up, but we would be having King Maponga. I mean, that's also, we'll be having him on Tuesday. Actually, I could have him tomorrow, but I said, no, we have to digest. Definitely, we might have a show on Sunday, but on Tuesday is reserved for King Maponga Joshua. I mean, I don't know how I can describe this, but you've been following him. Most of you've seen the kind of revolution that I don't know why do I even keep using revolution. The rebirth, the renaissance of Maponga is amazing. Like, he decided just to go back to nature. He spent times and nights in the caves, in the rivers, and yeah, that's how it is. So we cannot wait to tap into this knowledge of the ancestors that he's been gathering. I mean, he's been actually bringing out a lot from the past. And I think that will be a very incredible moment and time to spend with King Maponga Joshua again. And of course, I bring you greetings from Professor James Small, who is presently in Ghana to attend the funeral of his closest friend and a queen mother to Professor Nketia. He's been saying it all the time. He's the one that installed Professor James Small, in the House of the Royals in Ghana. As we know, he was on Ghana tour, the cultural tour, and but this one just suddenly happened. But of course, one thing we do know that also happened to Professor James, I think most of you were aware that hackers hacked his phone. And so for all, I think 3 weeks conservatively, he was not reachable, even if you text him. So this brings us also to the mine too. Have been hacked, my accounts and stuff, and even my platforms, and people even cloning me and cloning us on Pan-African Daily. So we have to be very careful with technology these days, in as much as it's very important we use it in a very good way, but of course we should be wise enough. Actually, I asked him yesterday, did anything come out of that, just for experiences to share with us? I think he would actually be in the right place to tell you, but he said yes, of course they got on 1 or 2 persons who actually believed it, but most of the people that got that information, that they reach out to them to try and extort money to scam them, they reach out to Pan-African Daily and ask, I don't know Professor James like this. He would not ask money like this. He had never done something like this. Do you think this could be him? And I just say no, with no benefit of doubt. I said no, never ever. It can never be. It's just the same thing, like somebody can come and say, oh, Baina, Professor Baina said this, and I'm really just gonna say no. I mean, that's how important it is for us to know ourselves, to know each other, to see something that somebody would say is Synovia. I was like, no, that's not Synovia, because the cloning of us is becoming real. People, like I said, are using fake accounts in the name of Pan-Africanism and fake preachers of Pan-Africanism, but there's just a lot of infiltrators. But when you have the right energy, you just know it. So we have to be really careful. We have to know each other to the point to say, I know her, I know him. No, he can do this. He cannot be that one. Otherwise, a lot would have actually pour money into those accounts. Imagine real people that are connected through Pan-African Daily. And even when they hacked it, I kept sending messages to Professor James telling him, your account has been hacked, but it was going in the hands of the hackers. That information was going back to the hands of the hackers. So please, we have to be watchful. Check information so well, cross-check it. Even if Pan-African Daily would ask for a donation or something, please make sure you actually check. Is it Pan-African Daily TV, a sister or a brother, or from the continent? Is this really you? We have to be in the process of doing due diligence and holding ourselves accountable. Because the movement is so sweet. Pan-Africanism has caught fire in everybody. But not everybody is Pan-African. You don't understand. The movement is so sweet. Everybody wants to be Pan-African, even non-Africans. Oh, come on, give me a break. None. So you see, that fire that we lighted, that was lit on all our platforms since 2020, is just like, it's just carried everybody. Everybody wants to be a part of it. We see Africans proudly representing, even though it's still a very long fight. It's still a long journey to go, but I'm telling you, we're already started and we're on right track. We could look feedback and look at our journey since 2020 to now. I'm telling you, we've only been rising. Even as we were silent without doing anything on Pan-African Daily, we had at least 200, 300 subscribers daily. And YouTube doesn't lie because they send you the analytics. You can actually see. I mean, like, basically don't do anything. The lot of productions and the things we've been doing and the energy that we all have put here, the energy of truth, the energy of oneness, the spirit of unity and harmony and solidarity, the African social consciousness, the Ubuntu that we speak all the time here. That all our elders, our teachers, our youth, our children, our tears that we've left on this platform, most of us, the spirit, the brokenness, the sadness, but the laughter and the joy and the peaceful, conversations that we've hosted here, it can never have gone in vain. Never, except we don't know who we are. So all this actually have watered this platform, and all of us, regardless all our challenges that we're going through, and we put that knowledge here. We put that spirit here. We put that unity here. And it is still here, and it will be here for generations upon generations to come. That is the biggest legacy. You can relax every time. Yes, you can. Proudly saying it. Proudly saying it. Yes, Stevie, we claim victory. We claim so much victory over, basically, we're not using that word like enemy. We don't have enemies. Others might consider us enemies, but I think we have risen the energy. Even all this time, you can see. You can look back, you can retrospect your life, and you see, even you are at peace. You're satisfied for being the voice, for being the background, for being the grounds upon which others can stand on, for giving that hope. Pan-African Daily is so much respected. It is the one of the most trustworthy platforms. I mean, I know valuable platforms that all of us are doing. Most of us don't host guests. Most of us just do a compilation and we upload videos. You understand? But like I said, this connection, no matter how tired, no matter how old we would get, I think we will all go gray and old and start getting our white hairs and even walk on our trolleys. We will stay there here. In as much as we have the voice and the mind, we will still be here. So I really want to appreciate you. I want to bring you this feedback. As usual, there is there is nothing more that I can say. Like, just go back, thank that energy, and trust the process. Everything is fine, just so fine. I met people on the continent whom we sit behind and say, oh, maybe they need help or they do this. And the way they treated me and funded me and promoted me and sponsored me, I like, there's abundance in our unity. And each and every person has. The thing now is the exchange and to find the equilibrium, the balance, and that's the period we're in now. I can tell you most of the things we look at and say, oh, no, this is suffering people, this and that. I'm telling you, look at the smiles on the face on these children that are being showcased on these billboards with butchy stomachs and stuff like that. You like, really? Are you humans? No. So that's the power, that's the energy that we are coming back with on another level. Another level when we hear our professors deeply, the creators, the founders. Yes, that's white hair, Kofi. Don't tell me you can't see it. You just cannot see it because it's a camera. Come and give me a break. And I'm so happy to have. Do you know what wisdom and knowledge is all about? I mean, I cannot even wait. Like, I could even spray it. I could, but we are there. How much energy? Because we still have work to do. Who do you think we are? We're here just because we still have a job to do. We have a continent to build, people. We have a continent to awake from sleep. They're here. They're waiting for us. So I think I have 4 minutes. Let me just use this for a commercial. And this commercial is, like I said before, we are meeting in Germany, as I always say, and I've been doing it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work, sometimes it trap up, sometimes it's not trouble, but we are never going to give up until we would meet in Germany. And this time, not just a kind of a meeting, like I said, hey, we're meeting for this powerful gathering, under the topic Invest in Africa. So you all just going to be saving the date for this powerful 4 days meeting, the first African Diaspora Trade Fair, which we anticipate to be Europe's largest international trade fair. First African Diaspora Trade Fair. Okay? Yeah, because we do conferences, we do awards, we do Black Excellence, we do everything, but we have never talked about business. We have never met and brought the continent to tell us about the opportunities on the continent, the institutions to tell us, and issues of reparations, issues of repatriation, issues of documentations on the continent and the countries. We need these answers. I mean, we can try to do it like we're doing like this, but at least we need a platform that we can talk about business, the business of travel, the business of relocating, the business of land, the business of investment, the business of just connecting with one another and talk to us. We are right here. Because like we say, we are the biggest stakeholders. And I think the continent is beginning to take us really, really seriously. And not just the continent, also, even our host countries are actually being proud now to use its diaspora, to be able to negotiate the continent. So imagine. Like Dr. Arikana said, we have to own those part of those those infrastructures, diamonds and gold and silver. Sometimes we talk so small, like literally, like we don't talk about, I'm owning a gold mine. Like sometimes it looks bigger or it looks so smaller. But I'm very happy. I had reparations brought a topic here. It's unfortunate because I thought the professor was going to be live reparation to answer your question about Ghana's water that has been destroyed, contaminated. And reparations was trying to ask the possibility that they could collaborate with the Sahel region, particularly Burkina Faso, because Ghana is the closest. I think your close neighbors together. And Yeah, I think that's a point of research that all of us can do, and we find out what could be a solution for that. But I think reparations, you were already trying to like get a connection to Burkina Faso and try to see how Excellency Traore or his government can be able to actually like block that passage of water, like you said, in the next I think 10 years or 15 years, the whole water systems in Ghana is going to become contaminated. And we know a huge African American community is out there in Ghana. So I really want somebody that has so much knowledge on this topic to be able to educate us and the solutions, because that's something that is concerned. We should be concerned about it. So apart from that, oh wow, yes, Buffalo Soldier, you were there last year, so I don't even doubt you're gonna be there. Buffalo Soldier will be in Germany in a full delegation. Of course, I know you were there already, and if we did not cancel this year, you would have been there. You would have been there. That I know. But this time we're coming now, actually, to network with the continent and really do business. So I think you can. We'll already be reserving, a spot or an exhibition booth for Buffalo Soldiers and the Caribbean delegation. Okay. So we need all the delegations to be represented. We're going to reach out to all our content creators, our journalists, our specialists, our experts all over. Okay. I mean, we'll be going also to Happy, Felicia, and our brother Taki, promoting all these tour destinations. Professor James Cultural Pilgrimage Tour to West Africa, and the Happy tours to Kemet and stuff like that. And a lot of Africans are coming with a lot of initiatives and businesses. We need a platform. We need a platform, and let us meet in the middle to set an e-commerce platform for our own initiatives. We should not wait. Like I said, the continent is rolling, people. You see me, I'm charging about this idea. I just came back and I changed everything. I said, yes, we used to do the cultural festival, and since 25 years, yes, we've been promoting culture. Now it's time to promote trade and development. So these two platforms would be sharing a space. I mean, Buffalo Soldiers, you were there, and you see how that complex is huge for us to do it. But we'll be coming up with a lot of communique on that. So it is time. Yes, the Chinese are illegally digging gold. Where are we going to sit down and be talking that? We need to meet at the conference. We need to meet at the African Diaspora Conference during the trade fair, and we iron up these things. We have Africans in China, and they speak Chinese. We have Africans basically in every civilization. The diaspora is not just the diaspora in the West. We have diasporans everywhere. We have to meet. It's a platform for our businesses and to connect ourselves to the continent in a very massive way at the high level. Yes, we should stop playing small. I remember his late Nelson Mandela said, "Your playing small will never help Africa. You're trying to play small." And I think we've been always playing. We've been playing small. We have to follow the lead of Professor Dr. Dr. Arikana, and be the Buffalo Soldiers in the ground. But we're responsible for platforms, so let's do it. We have enough time. It is June next year. Okay, June next year from the 5th to the 8th. So guys, just save the date and reserve your stuff. We have to talk about all this grassroots movement. How do we face this thing? And look at ourselves in it. That's just a matter of presentation, but a matter of actually having a working session for 4 good days, from morning 10 o'clock till evening. And in between, we party and celebrate ourselves. What could be so big and what could be so nice than that? Celebrating ourselves and then doing business with ourselves and the continent. Let's do it. All this China-Africa summit is the same thing. China-France summit is the same thing. China-American summit is business. While the global world is focusing on doing business with our leaders, we have to also get that part of the share of the cake, like Dr. Arikana says all the time. It's our time to call our leaders. Come and tell us, How can we invest? Give us the possibility. What are the opportunities? What are our gains on it? I mean, we can be in the diaspora, but we own lands and mines and golds and stuff on the continent. Doesn't mean literally I must relocate, but of course I can sit here and all my money will be coming from Africa. That's how the world is doing. And the experience is huge. Very, very huge. Okay. So please, yes, we're going to meet, as we said. Tomorrow we would not be having a guest, but we'll be having a guest on Sunday. And it's not just a matter of guests, but I think we have to commune. There's a lot to be thankful for. We have wandered a little bit away from the spirit, from African spirituality knowledge, coming together. You know, just like Mama Bello, I love her when she said, just come sometimes when we just sing and just commune in a spiritual way. Today is about lectures. All the other days, we listen, we're learning in school. But when do we gather here to give thanks for ourselves, for the Creator, for our ancestors, the Creator of our ancestors, the powers that be? When do we gather? So, of course, we're also going to do that every Sunday. Okay, yes, we do it in our own way. But when I say Sunday, it's most days because people are off. It's not that we're following a particular pattern. We're going to also have that moment to come in an African spiritual context and talk about those values in our spirituality that anchor us together. And then we can drink water together and we actually can pour libations together. And that's the new spirit that we're going to start on Pan-Afrcan Daily, and we're starting on Sunday. Okay, bring all our petitions in front of the Creator, in front of our ancestors, and say, we've never left you. We have never done that kind of. I think one time, Snovia said about it. We have to give this. Like the Agenda 2063 is saying they give their affirmations or aspirations. We also have set our own affirmations on the Pan-African Daily in reverence, in recognition of our ancestors and the Creator. And this is things that we have to gather, not just to learn about political and the challenges and the development and the solutions, but just to come and drink water and share with one another. And if we have maybe guest speakers that will sing for us, or just somebody that will play a drum or a guitar, and that would make it. So, but we have to make that a point. Kofi, I don't know about elections or whatever. Your questions, I think you're asking today. Today, you're really asking this in a wrong format. But I think if we have a guest, why not? We're gonna do it. So, people, thank you, family. Thank you so very much. And we are back live, and we're going to be doing what we are called a purpose in life here every day on Pan-African Daily. All right. Even when we take some breaks in between, so okay, like a 1 day off, but we just come up and announce our programs. And I'm also looking forward for the women here, Cheryl, Snovia, Stevie. I mean, shouldn't we be coming up live and also sharing these experiences of what has been keeping us busy? And also, all of us in the chat who wants to come live, it's your platform, it's your home, and everybody have a right for a speech to stand up and say, I'm a family member and this is what I think. So let us congregate each time and begin to look forward. Same time on Sunday. I don't really know, Mr. Marshall. We can agree on the time here, but I think Sunday would be better if we do a little more earlier. Maybe, I don't know, 6 p.m. or 4 p.m. What do you all suggest? Or same time, 2 p.m. Eastern is basically 9 p.m. in Germany. So, and on the continent, definitely too, So yes, let's think about it. But of course, we're meeting on Sunday. We will just connect. We can also meet earlier, 12 or whatever. But if 6 o'clock is too early for you out there, I think. Yes, I'm going to bring a musician with me. I'm going to bring a drummer. Okay, if not, we're going to enjoy a wonderful time, even in the presence of, yeah, a leader, a spiritual leader, and any one of us can do it. Good, good. Did I miss a point? No. Are you tired? No, I don't see that. Me too. We've been missing each other, but I think it's time for us to go. So thank you, and yeah, we see ourselves Sunday at the African Spirituality Gathering. Wonderful. Yes, Kofi, you can come to Germany. Germany is open now. I already told you. Okay, so let's see. You are watching the Pan-African Daily TV with Dr. Susan Tatah. The Africa we want: unity, consciousness, our culture, our spirituality, our history. One Africa for Africans worldwide. Motherland's calling its diaspora home. Join my voice. Join my team. Join my campaign. Campaign 21 hashtag 1 million subscribers on the Pan-African Daily TV YouTube. Be a volunteer. Apply now. Be the new Africa.